Welcome back to the channel, guys. Obviously, we're here to preview the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Got a couple of you guys in the chat already. Who we got in here? Henry Williams already starting to talk about the punctures. Yes, absolutely. The punctures for Qatar, they were both left fronts, the fully loaded left front tyre. So we're going to get onto all your questions in a minute. Living on the Edge says hello. Via Ragusa Room Rentals Italy. I guess that's your business name. Welcome. Hello from Buenos Aires Airport. Welcome, guys. Like I say, we're going to talk about the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. It's not my favorite. It's very non-technical. It's a little bit like, we're going to get onto the track map in short order, I promise you. But I wanted to hear what you guys thought about the Lewis Hamilton video as well. I've been tossing up whether or not I should put out that video. Obviously it's Abu Dhabi 21. It's a very sensitive topic. It's drama, chaos, controversy, conspiracy. But I thought, you know what, coming from the driver, coach and mentor's point of view, no, let's bring it back to the technical side. Let's bring it back to the sporting side. There was still match point. There was still a point to play for. So I wanted to highlight that in that video. And if you did have a question on that video, leave it in the comment section for me. Obviously, I'm going to give priority replies to members of the channel and super chat as well. Ignacio, hola hora, ¿cómo estás? Erica, hello, last track of the season, exactly. So before we get on to hit the like, absolutely, Lou, thanks for reminding me. Before we get on to Abu Dhabi itself, I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit just quickly about second chances and what's happening with the sprint races and the second chances that people are getting. So if you recall, if you were here last time we did the live stream to preview the Qatar Grand Prix, I came out and said, Max is going to struggle with front tyre life. Trust me on this one. I know what I'm talking about. These types of corners, Max's driving style, the Red Bull, everything combined, he's going to struggle. What happened in the sprint race? He comes out and says, yes, I ran out of front tyres. Now, some guys were coming to me after the race saying, yeah, but it didn't happen in the main race. It only happened in the sprint race. And I'm saying, hang on a minute. It's not often you get a second chance to resolve for these issues. Like if this popped up in the normal race and you only had one shot, yeah, Max is going nowhere in that race. He's going to struggle with front tire life issues. So the sprint weekend is providing an opportunity for resolution. So Checo was trying all sorts of suspension, new front wing, new race lines. The guys are working flat out back at the simulator in between the sprint race and qualifying itself. Max gets it sorted. The Red Bull get it sorted. Bang, he takes pole position and wins the race. So he got off the hook there. He got lucky. It's not me that got lucky there. So I wanted to call that out to you guys, that the role of the driver, coach and mentor is to prevent this from happening. Like, I could see this coming and it would be my job to say, hey, look out for this and square this up before it happens, so that you don't come across it and then say, wow, that's a surprise. Why do we have front tire life issues? Exactly my point. So it's to protect people and provide the drivers a bridge from which to walk across. Just to give you guys another example of how the sprint race can help you, I'm just going to share screen here and we're just going to have a look at Silverstone 2021, the cause of the big crash and big accident with Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. And what I wanted to highlight to you guys was, I always say on this channel, and we've been saying to Lando for a long time, attack up the inside, my friend. Go for the inside, and if it means you come together, you come together. Check this out. Let's switch over to the images. Hopefully you can see that on the screen in front of you. Let's just get rid of your message, Ignacio. This is the sprint race, and Lewis gets a good slipstream down the old pitch straight in Silverstone, and he starts attacking around the outside. And that's why I say to you guys, that's a no-no. You should not be doing that. That's not the way to attack Max Verstappen. So I would be saying that to Lewis up front before the race. Like, you guys know my philosophy on this. If you're going to attack, go up the inside. And if you come together, who cares? You come together. Like, that's the only way you're going to have to attack Max, is to bring him down and, punch through him, is to get up the inside. And like I say, you come together. So then he gets a second opportunity in the main race. And this is what I want to call out to you guys, similar to the way Max could resolve for his tyre issues from the sprint to the main race. Lewis resolved for this issue from the sprint to the main races as well. He gets the same sort of run down the old pitch straight, and now you see Lewis start to attack up the inside. So he's changed his style here, and he's gone back and had to think about what happened in the sprint. And he said, you know what? If I get that opportunity again, I should have gone for the inside. Next time, if that happens again, I'm going for the inside. That's exactly what happened. And you guys know what happens thereafter. Obviously, Max, they come together. Here's a shot on the onboard from Lewis. So this is the sort of resolution that we're talking about that can happen between sprint and main race. So there you go, guys. Look, I thought I'd share that with you just to start the live stream and say Max, he didn't get lucky, but he was fortuitous in the sense that he had a second chance to square that up. And we've seen drivers amend for these issues from sprint to main race. And it's my job to prevent them from happening in the main race, like the Netherlands and the Hungarys and the Qatars as well. He would have run into issues there, trust me. Kayla's in the chat. Hello, welcome to the live stream. All right, let's get on to the driver's mentality and who needs to do what. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the Thursday press conference, and it was with the two people that we spoke about last time and who I'm probably going to speak about this time as well. It was with Franco Colapinto and Lewis Hamilton. I don't know about you guys, but I see Lewis very emotional this weekend. He looked like he was going to cry in one of the answers. So where's his mindset? Where's his mentality? He was talking about suboptimal performance this year. And then Franco, they asked him, like, what would you say has been something you can improve and the thing you're most proud of? And Franco was like, yeah, I have a lot to learn as well. And it brings me on to another point, which I've raised previously on this channel as well, which is the mindset and people and mentality that gets you to F1 is not the mindset that's going to carry you forward in F1 or the people. Totally different, right? The mindset and mentality that gets you to F1 is, I'm the best. I'm going to get to F1 because I'm the best. I'm going to show the world I'm the best. It's almost like a stubborn self-belief in a way, like a bit of arrogance that says, no, I'm the best. I'm getting to F1 to show the world I'm the best. But when you get to F1, it needs to be, okay, hang on, I'm not the best. Like, what's going on? What do I need to learn? Who do I need to bring in? What technical coaches and mentors do I need to work with? Who's been watching this sport for the last 30 years while I've been competing in go-karts and Formula 4, Formula 3, Formula 2, and been getting to F1? Who can take me further now? Totally different mindset. So the best in the world, the Maxes, the Schumachers, the Sennas, and the Hamiltons are saying, I've got a lot to learn. I need to improve. I need to work hard at this. And that's something in the tennis world, like the Roger Federers, where continuous improvement was always a thing, and just a love for the process rather than the outcome. Another interesting thing I want to call out to you guys just quickly before we get on to Abu Dhabi was, wasn't it interesting to see Novak Djokovic in the paddock in Qatar? Craig Slater goes and interviews him. What's Novak talk about in that interview? Who can tell me in the chat what he spoke about? I'll give you guys a few minutes to come back to me on that one and remind me in the chat what Novak spoke about. It was along the lines of his new coach and mentor and who that was. And think about this, guys, because Novak's in the paddock speaking about coaches and mentors. And Formula One just doesn't get it at the moment. Very frustrating. Anyway, I digress. So that's kind of driver's mentality and who needs to do what. Franco needs to have a good weekend. It's his last opportunity to show to the world that he's got some sort of idea and can get this car back into the points despite falling into the valley of despair. Hamilton needs to go out on a high as well. He's heading across to Ferrari. I've put out my Hamilton video. He needs to move in with confidence into that team. And I've given him the blueprint of exactly what he needs to do. He needs to resolve for two technical issues. Number one, the Abu Dhabi 21 racecraft attack and defense. And then he needs to resolve for how to drive these big, heavy cars that don't like a lot of weight transfer and have like very unusual aerodynamic platforms that don't like to be upset too much. So those are the guys, again, following on from Qatar, that they need to do. They're the ones that need to do. I feel like they've got the most opportunity and the most work that needs to be done. Let's take a look at the weather, guys, just quickly. Hopefully you can see on the screen in front of you. This is the weather for the weekend. Much warmer than what we had in Qatar. I'm not sure if the Mercedes, like obviously the Mercedes is liking the cooler conditions. So it went well in Vegas. It went well in Qatar, I guess, as well, in the hands of George Russell. I'm not sure if this is going to impact them here. Like, we're talking about 20 to 30 degrees, tops of 27, lows of 23. I've highlighted it in red for you, the areas, the times in which we're going to be running this weekend, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 p.m. So this is going to be hot, guys. So again, looking after the tires is going to be important. And we do have the softest compounds here this weekend as well. So keep an eye out for that. Maybe the heat together with the softest compounds is going to push this into a two-stop. Let's take a look at the, I wanted to bring up the track map for you guys and just have a look at that together. That's probably the, where we're going to spend a little bit of time. Obviously, I'll do a Q&A with you guys towards the end, of the live stream. So save your questions for me at the end, and let's bring up the track map and have a look at that. So what do we got? So the first thing I like to look at on track maps is technical corners. Remember, Qatar was super excited for that. We had 4 technical corners. We had the double apex 4 and 5. We had the hairpin, turn 6. We had the long corner of constant radius, turn 7. And we had the increasing radius, turn 10. And that's where I said you need a certain thing in these technical corners. Believe it or not, guys, I don't really see any technical corners on this track. Now, you might be going, hang on a minute, Martin. What about the turn 5 hairpin? What about the turn 6 and 7 chicane? What about the turn 9 long corner of constant radius? Yeah, kind of. Like, let me explain my thinking a little bit. Turn 5 is not really a hairpin. You know, when we talk about Chinese hairpin or Japanese hairpin, I mean, this is still taken in 3rd gear. So, you know, proper hairpin, you'd be getting down to 2nd at least, maybe even 1st in some occasions. This is still done at 100 kilometers. Hairpin's going to be a little bit lower than that. And so it's not sharp enough to be a true hairpin for me. Like, again, Chinese hairpin is my blueprint for hairpin. It's not big enough to be long corner of constant radius either. It's just the kind of longish right-hander that feeds you onto the straight. So I don't put it in either category. 6 and 7 I don't put in the category of chicane either, because 6 doesn't really feed you into 7. It's not, you don't want to be attacking the curbs in 6. You've got to actually pull the car back and try to get a good run through 7 and get a good run down this back straight, the second DRS zone. So I don't even place that in the category of chicane. It's the corners fall back on each other too much. If you take the curb in 6, it's going to unsettle everything, which is very unusual for a chicane. Normally, you want to be climbing the curbs. Like, think about Ascari chicane, Tamburello chicane, Canada's final chicane, all of Canada's chicanes, the Monza first chicane, Paul Ricard first chicane. Like, it's very unusual that you're not going to attack these curbs in this chicane. So, again, I don't like to place that in the category of chicanes because it's not characterized by the curbs, which for me is really defining when it comes to chicanes. And long corner of constant radius, I've seen Max go through here on his fast lap. He pretty much hits the apex just here where my cursor is, and then he's flat for the rest of it. So it's too open. You know, it's not tight enough to be a long corner of constant radius. They can get on throttle in the middle of this corner and just blast through here. So the key for this track, if I'm going to tell you what's going to be super important, this is the crunch time, guys. This is where I made the prediction about Max's front tire life. If I'm going to talk to you about what's going to be important here, it's getting on throttle in the off camber and crest type corners. So what are we talking about here? So when you come through turn 7 here, this corner, I'm not sure if you guys have seen it on the onboard, but you go over a little bit of a crest, number 1. So the track goes up and then over. And then number 2, it's slightly off camber as well. And both those things combined, a crest and off camber, mean that it's going to ruin your traction. You're not going to be able to get your foot down nice and hard, which is what you want to do in turn 7. So the car that can do that and has good traction potential is one that's going to do well out of turn 5 and out of the tight turn 7, which is over a crest and off camber. Similarly, you got that happening in 14 as well. Remember, this is where Latifi crashed. So that's my case in point, right? This is off camber, crest, annoying type of corner for a racing driver. Like, no grip. Yeah, because again, crests and off cambers do your head in. So no grip, no rear grip, no traction. Not sure if you've seen videos of Fernando sliding around here, this 12, 13, 14, low downforce, off camber, slippery track surface, kind of annoying. But I think the cars where they're at this stage of development, they should be fine to go. Like, I think Qatar surprised me how much grip those cars had, even in the high speed. I think the cars should be fine, not to mention we got the softest compound. So that's what I wanted to call out. Even turn 16, when I'm not sure, even if you saw when Max won when he won the World Championship and came across the line, I'm not sure if you remember the power slide that he couldn't get traction or was very eager to get traction. So for me, that's what's going to define this track is, do you have good straight line speed and good traction down these corners? And pretty much good traction through 12, 13, 14, 16, turn 1 as well. Now, if you're not sure what traction is, just to recap, it's the ability for you to put your foot down, your right foot down, get on throttle hard, early, fast, and get up through second, third, fourth gear quickly and get the downforce built on the car very quickly. That's what you're looking for. That's traction. And some of the things that can help with traction are obviously the short shifting, the throttle mapping, obviously this car's setup, the suspension, the rear spring, how the car squats to the ground. Tire pressures can play a factor in traction as well. And obviously from the driver's point of view, how quickly can you get the steering wheel straight, and how do you combine steering and throttle together with your upshifts? Those are some of the things which you can play with to get traction in these types of corners. So that's what I'm looking for here. Who's got the most traction? Who can get on throttle and just drive clean out of these types of corners? So that's what I'm looking for from a driver technique and a car setup point of view. Let's take a few questions on that. Does anyone have questions on traction, the types of corners that we have here, what's going to be important? And I'll just take a few questions here at this point. All right. Give me a sec. Let's put this up here. Okay. David Coulthard was talking this week about the importance of pairing new drivers with experienced coaches. What a legend. It's a shame it has to come from someone of David's maturity, because obviously he's been through the sport. He knows about that sort of thing. I wish that the people in the sport knew about it. And he was analysing Checo's manager and coach. I didn't know he had a coach. I think Checo's gone to see Rob Wilson a few times. I don't think he has a permanent full-time coach. I don't think anyone, like Charles Leclerc has a driver coach, but I don't think it's to the level of technical knowledge that he needs at this point. I mean, I think they've gotten someone to fill that role instead of finding a specialist person dedicated to that role, I guess is what I'm saying. He went to see Rob Wilson a few times. I'm not sure how much it helped, and I'm not sure what they discussed, but that is my understanding of Checo's coach at this point. What about traction zones before a long straight? Yeah, very important. Did you have a question just before? Sorry, I'm just catching up now. Yes, obviously before a long straight, it's very important. The speed you can carry out of the corner, you're going to carry down the full straight. So it's going to be super, super, super important when you've got a traction zone preceding a long straight. Henry, McLaren are the best at traction. Expect them to do well. Kayla, maybe in McLaren's favor. Okay, so you guys are thinking McLaren with the traction. Yep. If that's the car with the most traction, then yes, because what I'm saying is this circuit is gonna press that area. It's gonna be testing that area. So yes, absolutely. How does elevation crest affect them? Well, when you say elevation can be up or down. Elevation is not here nor there. It's like Spa, for example. Spa is a lot of elevation. Netherlands has elevation. Mugello is full of elevation, but it's not the elevation that's the problem. It's whether or not you find yourself in a dip or a crest. A dip being down, like where it compresses, and crest being like over a hill. If you find that in a corner, then you're in trouble. Well, not in trouble, but the crest, you'll be in trouble. The dip, you'll have a lot more grip. So that's what I wanted to call out there. How does it influence the driving? Well, good question. So obviously you've got more grip in a dip. So coming into a braking zone that's got like into a dip, like that kind of comes in. Think about like the way turn 3 in Netherlands slightly goes downhill and then goes in camber. That's perfect, right? It's going to give you more grip. So you want that. It means you can push. You can all of your driving inputs can go up. The revs can go up. Steering can go harder. You could drive into it with more confidence and more grip. You can brake harder into dips and that sort of thing. But when you're over a crest, like we've got the traction zones over crests here, then you just need to be more gentle with your throttle introduction, make sure the steering wheel is straight, do your short shifting and all that sort of thing. You just need to be aware that you've got less grip. So, Singapore showed that McLaren are the best in traction. Yes, that's true. That's true. But I guess Vegas is also a test in traction because it's very low downforce, very low grip, and you're accelerating from low speed. So it was interesting to see that McLaren didn't do well in Vegas. So maybe that had something to do with the temperature. If you search for traction by softening the rear suspension, you're going to suffer in the mid-high speed corners. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Obviously, in the high speed corners, you want to keep the platform nice and steady, nice and stable. Having a soft setup is not going to do that for you. It's going to allow for too much weight transfer. But in the slow speed, that's what you want. You want the car to squat down on the rear tires. You want that weight transfer. Get the weight across the back, and then that's more weight downforce in a way on the rear tires, pushing the car forward. So that's what you want. But yes, obviously that's going to hurt you through the long turn 9, for example. Erica, how to tackle an off camber corner? Good question. Well, when it's off camber, I'm just going to use my finger to draw it for you. But if you lay down on your stomach and look at the corner lying down on your stomach, the track kind of falls away from the apex. And so it's like you're driving around like a, how can I explain it? Yeah, it's like you're driving around the corner in the vertical sense as opposed to just driving around in 2D. So you've got that to deal with. Now gravity is trying to pull you away from the apex, which is not good. So the trick therefore is to stay as close to the apex as possible because that's where it's flatter. Generally where the curb is and the closest part to the curb, that's where it's flat and then it falls away like off camber thereafter. So if you take the normal racing line, you're going to suffer from that off camber. But if you come as close as possible and just try to stick yourself on the apex, then you can mitigate the effects of the off camber corner. There's not much you can do other than that, to be honest. I mean, it's track geometry. You just have to drive around it. Good question. Well, who will go well in car predictions? Like I say, we've already covered that. Traction's going to be important. But the Mercedes has done really well lately, so I can't help but feel that if it's not going to suffer from overheating its tires, even on one lap, then it should do pretty well because they can run the car pretty stiff here because there's not as many bumps, which is what's pushing a Mercedes to run the car softer and upset the aerodynamic platform due to the bumps. We don't have bumps here, so there's no need to run it like excessively soft other than for a bit of traction. So that's all I can see. Let's talk race strategy now, guys. I've been wrong the last 2 strategies, so I need to get this one right. So let's have a look here. So on the screen, you can see the compounds that have been nominated for this year. And we're down here at the bottom, Abu Dhabi. And we've got the C5, the C4, and the C3, the softest compounds in the range, guys. So again, that's what we had in Vegas. Vegas was a 2-stop. So potentially we'll be looking at a 2-stop again. And this is what happened last year. So we saw a 2-stop as well. So interesting to just have a look at the lap times here. And it's always good to have a look like, do the times fall away or not? Or do they get better or not? So last year, this is Max starting on the medium. He was pretty rock solid, pretty consistent. We didn't see any drop off, a quick push lap just before his pit stop. And then this hard tire seems to be getting quicker as the race goes on. And then they pitted again to finish the race. So, all looks good, I guess, there for you could potentially even try 1-stop with that sort of degradation. Like I didn't see any reason why Max had to come in. But obviously, if someone's pitted beforehand and someone else has gone on to a two-stop, then you've got to react and respond to that, particularly if you're in the lead as well. Let's try to bring up the race strategies together. Give me a sec. What do we got here? Yeah, this one, go back. Yep, so these are the strategies. So Verstappen did 16, and most of the guys, this is a very early stop for Alonso, put on used hard compound tires, but most of the guys did the two-stop and split the race up that way. So we'll see how we go. It'll just depend on how the tires are faring, how the drivers are driving, and how long the pit lane is and the overtaking delta. These are the things that feed into race strategy. So just to give you a little more context on that, if the pit lane is super long or it's a very slow pit lane speed limit, then it's going to cost you a lot to visit the pit lane. And so you can't zip in and zip out super quick, and then it's going to push it more towards a one stop because it costs you too much to pit. So that's the pit lane side. Now from the overtaking delta side, if you pit and you can't cut through the guys that you come out behind, well, that's a problem as well. So you see that in Mexico a lot. You just pit and then get stuck. So that happened also in Qatar. George Russell pitted early and he couldn't pass the guys that he came out behind. So that's why the likes of Max and Lando stayed out, because, yeah, George was quick, but he couldn't use the pace. So the overtaking delta and the pit lane time that it cost you, together with the degradation, are the things that are going to feed into the strategy. So from memory, it is a fairly long pit lane because it goes underground and does all that. But you do pop out a little bit, like you pop out in turn 3, so that's not too bad. And the entry bypasses the final corner, so that's fine. And we got the softest compound, so let's see. I'll be curious to see. I'm not gonna give you guys a prediction for this strategy. We're gonna have to see based on the practice runs. So yeah, like I say, guys, it's not the most like I say, other than the off camber corners and the traction zones, top speed and that sort of thing, it's not the most entertaining track, guys. Like, I don't want to sit here and tell you that this is going to be a fascinating race, because I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I wish it was more technical. So, the Monzas, the Imolas, the fact that we've gotten rid of Netherlands now, which is so technical. Like, I love Netherlands. Long corners. There's like 6 long corners in Netherlands. Turn 10 in Netherlands. You guys saw me analyze that in the Lewis Hamilton video. That's the sort of thing that we want to be seeing. So, yeah, these corners are a little bit strange for me, guys. All right, let's take a few questions. So I want to know if you guys had any questions on the Lewis Hamilton video. Stick them in the chat now, and we'll talk about that for a bit. And yeah, I'll be keen to unpick that a little bit. If you had any questions on Max's tire wear as well, stick that in the chat as well. Let's take a look what questions we got. Henry, is that why the tires have negative camber? No, it's not. I guess you're referring to the off camber corners. No, it's not. So the tires have negative camber because when they're cornering, let's say a normal flat out corner, let's say like Cops, for example. Let's go back to our images. Let me explain this to you. All right. Something like this, for example. So this is Cops, right? The head on. Let me get a good shot. It's probably the best one's this one. So why they have negative camber? So negative camber is the top of the tire leaning in, right? So this tire leaning in and this tire leaning in. You can see it probably better on Lewis's car, actually. That's the negative camber across the top. Now you got to remember, they're flying into this right-hander here with a lot of speed. So this is Cops corner in Silverstone. So what's happening then is from left to right, that's the force is going to come across the car that way, right? From left to right, the cornering force. And that then is going to squash this tire, right? And you want to build in a little bit of negative camber, because when it gets squashed, it's going to end up flat, basically. So if you didn't build that negative camber in, when it gets squashed, it's going to actually end up with like positive. Naturally, it's going to end up with positive camber once the cornering load comes across. So it's to predict and to account for that cornering load. But when it comes across and squashes that tire, then it's going to end up flat and it's all good. It's also helpful for straight line speed as well. If you can just lift off this outside shoulder here off the ground a little bit, you get less rolling resistance down the straight. But it does, the disadvantage is that it does heat up this inside shoulder too much down the straight as well. So like anything in F1, a little bit is good, a little more is good, and too much is no good. So it's just finding that balance. But the reason is to predict and account for the cornering force that's going to squash this tire during the cornering load. So I hope that answers your question. If you had a follow-up question, stick it in the chat for me. All right. Question: how would you work with Lewis in his adaptation to Ferrari and in the Italian context? So I guess you're talking about a cultural adaptation. It's a good question. I mean, I'm not sure how necessary. Well, it is necessary, obviously, that he needs to adapt and work in with that team, but I'm not sure. Like, is there a cultural mismatch to begin with? I mean, they both want to win. They're both dedicated. They both got championships behind them, both Ferrari and Lewis. There's a culture of winning at Ferrari. I see the biggest issues with the race operations culture. Like where he's come from Mercedes, who generally are pretty good with their strategies and they're generally across most of it, to Ferrari, which can be a little bit clumsy at times. But in terms of being an Englishman in a Ferrari outfit, maybe Nigel Mansell comes to mind. You might have to ask Peter. I don't see it being an issue, honestly. Like, this is a multicultural sport. I mean, Max Verstappen's a Dutch in an English team, and like Fernando Alonso's Spanish and English, and Lewis will be English in Italian, and Leclerc is French in Italian, and Raikkonen was Finnish in Italian. And they were saying the same things about Raikkonen, actually, because Finland is it's also quite cold naturally, but the people there are generally cold, and Italians are a lot warmer people, a lot more European, a lot more Latin in that sense. So I think it'll be fine. I don't think that will be the issue. Let's put it like that. Like, I think there'll be other issues. Lewis from a technical standpoint and Ferrari from a race operations standpoint. Those are going to be the two challenges for which Lewis is going to need to come over before, I think, cultural differences. Good question. Kayla, Lewis has lost the confidence. He even said to himself that he's slow. Yeah, I know. And I think in Abu Dhabi 21, we were on a technical issue. I think we got a mental issue out of that, which led to another technical issue with these cars. And now we're on to the second technical issue. So we've had the second mental issue. So we're on technical, mental. And like I said to you guys in that video, all of the mental issues are downstream of a technical issue. He needs to resolve for the technical issue, and all the mental stuff will go away pretty quickly. That's a bad mindset for a driver. Yes. Surely you get used to it and it will be difficult to come back from that. Yeah, 100%. Winning is a habit is the quote, isn't it? You know, Max has made a habit out of winning. It's his day-to-day routine. And I guess losing is a habit as well, is my point there. So, yes, I agree. But I still feel like my solution is the right one. Resolve technically. And similarly for Franco as well, like he's made a few technical errors and now he's in the valley of despair. He's in that mental double checking, double clicking, self-doubt. Am I good enough? Have I messed up? Do I play it safe, or do I drive? Like, how do you drive a Formula One car with that weight on your shoulders? You know, that's obviously going to be challenging. So yes, absolutely. I think Franco's there as well. What else have we got in the chat? 27 degrees expected. Yep, absolutely. Which with the softest compounds is going to promote blistering. And we haven't spoken about that on this channel, guys. And I might just touch on that quickly. So the difference between graining and blistering. So think about it like this. You've got surface temperature of the tire, and then you've got core temperature of the tire. And so they're two totally different things. Like when you're cooking a steak or something, you're going to have surface temperature, but then you're going to have inner temperature, core temperature as well. The same sort of thing. And a lot of people don't talk about this. I don't know why, but it's very important. Tires are very important. Graining, like what we had in Vegas, is when the surface temperature is hotter than the core temperature. And the reason that graining cleans up is because eventually that core temperature rises and matches the surface temperature, and then it goes away. So you may have heard on the radio Lando saying, yeah, I've got a bit of graining, but if I stay out, it might clean up. He's 100% right, because the surface temperature heats up first, and it just takes a while for the core of the tire to eventually match. Sometimes it doesn't match, and then you're just stuck with graining. And graining is like if you get an eraser and just like rub away on like an eraser on a piece of paper. That's pretty much graining. It's like these beads of rubber that just on the surface that just form. And yeah, if you can wait and see it out, eventually it should clean up. Now, Vegas was exceptional because it was very cold. So it would be hard to get the two surface and core temperatures to match. Anyway, we're not going to have that for this weekend. I think we're going to have the opposite, which is blistering. And blistering happens when the core temperature is greater than the surface temperature. And then they do like these eruptions. The rubber sort of erupts on the surface. So you get like volcanic sort of eruptions. So that's blistering. So keep an eye out for blistering this weekend. We might get to see that. And that's a lot more aggressive. You see the tire just kind of melt, but then have bubbles on it. It's pretty weird. But it does happen in hot temperatures with soft compounds. So keep an eye out for that. 27 degrees expected for race day. And that leads me on to the two blowouts that we had on Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton last race. Now, I thought that because the mirror got smashed, that this was just shards of rubber. But then obviously looking back at the race and seeing that it was both the guys' left front tires, that's the fully loaded left front, the one that we said Max was going to run out of, the one that you're dragging through turns 4 and 5 and the long turn 7 and the 3 long corners, the fully loaded Max G ones. Those are the tires that blew up. They just blew up. The guys stayed out too long. So it'd be interesting. And I think that's a function of running maybe too high pressures as well. Maybe. I think the minimum pressure was something like 29 PSI. It's very high. The tires are just, the wall of the tire is going through a lot of strain. It might need to lower those pressures moving forward. All right, let's take a few more questions. So back on the Lewis Italian cultural match, Italian decision making will be a challenge for Hamilton. It's spread across people, sometimes not so structured. It's a little bit more. It's not as methodical. It's a little bit more. We'll just go with the flow and see what happens. So I have to wait and see. Like I said, I don't think it'll be the biggest issue. Ferrari race operations is shaky at the best of times, so he needs to take the car that Maranello built them and take the race operations into his own hands. That's what we've said before. You can't rely on the team for race operations. The technical discussions you will get watching a supercars race commentary is massively ahead of F1 commentary. Yes, I don't watch supercars, unfortunately, because I can't relate to it. I specialize in open formula and just they don't have significant downforce. And whilst you might be correct, and I'm not sure, unfortunately, I don't watch it. Because I specialize in significant downforce and open formula. And I guess things are at that level, at the top level, things are so different with those cars. They're a lot heavier, less downforce, tires are different. You just drive them differently. But yes, I guess if you're into that, good for you. Kayla, maybe a Williams won't crash in the barriers this weekend, but I don't even know anymore. Well, James Vowles came out and said, I don't care about 23. I don't care about 24. I don't care about 25. Break everything. And well, what did the boys do? Yeah. They broke everything. So maybe James has to take some responsibility for that. Is Lewis focusing on the 2026 cars because he can't get his driving style to work with this current generation? I don't think so. I mean, I don't think he'd be thinking that far ahead. What about 25? What if the Ferrari build a good car? Good, championship worthy car. You can't afford to throw away these chances and just because 26 is a new sheet. he should watch my video and start to review what he needs to do. I think Lewis is thinking, look, if I just get a good car that has a decent rear end, like I'll be fine. But that might not happen, Lewis. It might be a function of, it might not just be the Mercedes that doesn't have a good rear end. It might be just a function of the regs. Like at one point, the cars, the way they're built with the tire size and the dimensions and the aero platforms, who knows? Like, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It might just be something that these cars are like that. I mean, I'm not saying they are. Obviously, the Red Bull struggles with front end. The Ferrari's got great tire life, and the Mercedes struggles with rear end. So they've all got their sort of differences. But I mean, who's to say that this issue is not going to pop up again? You have to resolve for this, Lewis. You have to resolve for this now. Can't afford to wait for that. Any ideas on VCarb going soft tire at the end of the last race? I'm sorry, I didn't see that. What did they do? Go for fastest lap or something? I'm not watching that far back. Sorry, I know Liam had a shocker. The one of them, they came together on lap one of the VCarbs, didn't they as well? I don't know if they were going for fastest lap or doing something for strategy. I'm not sure. All right. Hey, good name, mate. Hey, Martin. When you say Max had a second chance, do you mean that in the main race he started using the tight lines to help out with tyre life, or was it more so the car setup? Good question, and I'm not sure. Something has definitely changed on that car. I mean, Checo was going out there trying new suspension, but I think a bit of both. I mean, obviously Max would have had time to review a little bit more detail the corners that were causing the problems, and maybe Checo was driving differently. I feel like it was more on the car side. Like Max was constantly asking for more front end. Even in the race, he was like, at the pit stop, he was like, yeah, give me 2 more clicks of front end when we switch over from the medium to the hard. So I feel like it was more on the car side, but there may have been some adjustments that Max has made in his driving as well. My point is that you don't always get this second chance to resolve for these issues. You've got to do the driver coaching piece. You've got to prepare for that up front and resolve for that up front, because if that was the main race, well, that's it. He finishes P8 with a bunch of front tire issues. So I'm not sure what they changed, to be honest. My point is that they were lucky to have that opportunity to make changes. Lewis winning in one of the first races could be that's all needed. Some Italian love. Yeah, of course. A little bit of spark, a little bit of a push always helps. Piggyback. Can you think Charles can be beaten by Lewis in qualifying? I mean, I don't know at this point. Lewis is struggling so much. It depends how he feels. Lewis is very emotional, like kind of has his highs. The highs are high and the lows are low. Maybe he enters the paddock with his head down and doesn't do so well. Or if he enters, like in Vegas, I feel like we saw a different Lewis. He was driving like with that fire, which is great. It just depends on how Lewis feels. Honestly, if it's on Lewis's plate, it's on Lewis's racket. If Lewis is feeling good with the car, I think he'll destroy Charles. But if Lewis gets into this spiral of negativity and he's not quite comfortable and not quite happy, well then like Charles will manage that situation better. And that's how I feel. That's what I think. Let me know what you guys think. But yeah. If the tire's exploding after the wing mirror debris was scattered across the track wasn't a result of the punctures, why did it happen to Lewis and Carlos simultaneously with their opposite driving styles? I think it's the way they use the curbs in the look, you got to remember this track's brutal. Like Qatar is brutal on the car, and it's because of the fast corners in the final sector. So it's not so much the way they drive in the long corner of turn 7, for example. It's that triple apex. It's those 3 fast high-speed corners at the end of the lap where they've got that left front on the curbs on entry and they sweep in from there. But it's also, I mean, I was thinking about this as well. It's also just a bit of luck sometimes as well. The compounds, the tires that Pirelli provide, they're not always... It's a good question, mate. I can only think that it's due to the curbs that they're using, because the tires are going through such vibrations over those curbs that lap on lap, it weakens the sidewall eventually, and then bang. And like, yeah, it didn't happen to Max. It didn't happen to the fastest car. It didn't happen to the slowest car. It happened on 2 different cars. Like Lewis is not carrying as much speed as Max through those corners. So I can only presume the curbs, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure, I have to say. I'm not sure what it was exactly. I'd like to know, but sometimes it's just the margins are so slim at that point that it just happens. But it was interesting. It happened on the same lap as well. And to those drivers, yeah, I've been asking the same question. Why was that? So yeah. Ignacio, Sauber got a huge step forward in Qatar. What do you think? Maybe you already commented. Sorry, I wasn't following the Saubers that much. I'm sorry. I wish I could answer it, but I wasn't following them that much. The kick Saubers, yeah. So Valtteri and Guan Yu Zhou did go up there, didn't they? Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. I wasn't following. I was trying to follow Max and his tyre wear and Checo and George, the start, the mentality, Lando, the yellow flag. I was all at the front of the race. Sorry, it's hard for me to go into detail on everyone's race. Piggyback, do you think Fernando still has it or is too late? Yeah, of course he still has it. I think he's more motivated than Lewis right now. I think he definitely still has it. Poor guy. I hope he gets a good car with Adrian Newey and can show us one more time why he's a world champion. Remember Silverstone 2020 when so many drivers suffered front left punctures? Yeah, same thing. Same thing. The high load through like Cops. It's through this corner, mate. This one. Cops. And Stowe down the end of the hangar straight, putting so much load on the front tires. So, yeah, that's what happened. And it was Lewis on that occasion as well, right? Remember he limped home. So there you go, guys. All right, we'll take a few more questions. And I think we're going to wrap up. Like I say, guys, there's not much to say about the track. Obviously, we've got a world championship on the line here with McLaren and Ferrari. It seems like not many people are interested in that. Surely McLaren can get that over the line. If they don't get that over the line, like, Jesus. They have a significant margin. The car is fine. So, yeah. Harold F., they lowered the car. Are you talking about the Red Bull? I think you're talking about the Red Bull, right? Between the sprint and the main race. So, yeah, they made a lot of changes. They lowered the car, suspension, front wing. I think they changed front wing as well. Kayla, Checo's just finished. Yep. Even Cameron's come out and saying, like, at the end of this year, that's it. I'm not sure what's going to happen there, but yeah. Okay, so in Vegas, Mercedes had a super strong rear end. We saw Lewis come live, except in the last Q3. Yeah, you know what's interesting? In that Q3 lap, he lost it on throttle on the rear in turn 3. You know, that long corner where you drive through, highly loaded, turning and accelerating at the same time. And it was just another rear-related issue. I think he doesn't have a feel for he's over driving. But also George put him under pressure in that qualifying session as well. Every time Lewis did a good lap, George was right there as well. And it's just like, oh, go away, you know, like, what do I need to do to beat this guy? Do I need to go one step further? And I don't think so. I think it's just about doing a tidy job and, you know, just let the car and let the corners play for themselves. I think he wanted it too much. He tried too much. So, yeah. All right, a couple more questions. Kayla, thanks for coming. Thanks for this year. Piggyback, what makes a driver a generational talent? Like, how do you spot them? Ooh. Hey, so it's got to be mentality. Like, I'm looking for mentality. I'm looking for someone that comes in and says, I'm here to win. I'm here to be a world champion one day, and I'm not going to stop until I get there. That was Max. That was Senna. That was Lewis. Like Lewis's first lap, first race in Melbourne, drives around Fernando and the BMW. I think it was Kubica. And like, it was clear from the start, I'm here to win. Max's first race for Red Bull, he won. It's that, like, And Liam Lawson also coming in saying, yeah, I'm here to win. I'm not here to make friends. Like, I'm here to win. So I think I look for that mentality. You need that because that's going to carry you in the difficult times. And that's going to bring you back towards self-criticism and continuous improvement and a focus on your job and not being distracted by the social medias. And obviously you need the speed as well. You need the lap time. You always need both, don't you? You need lap time plus mentality equals champion. So you need the lap time as well. That's Lawson too. There you go. Absolutely. 100%. All right, guys. Look, I think we're going to have to leave it there. Look out for the traction zones this weekend. Let's keep an eye on the throttle graph, that if you're on board with someone, have a look at the throttle graph, have a look at what gear they're using out of the slow, out of the turn 6 and 7 chicane, out of the tight turns 12, 13. Have a look at who can get on throttle and just shift up and drive out of the corners. That's who I think the car is going to be strong. So that's probably the only insight I can give you. And have a look at the top speeds as well. We're going to do a top speed comparison after practice. But yeah, that's what you guys should be looking for. That's the best technical insight that I can give you. And yeah, enjoy the race. Thank you for this season. We'll do some more Q&As moving forward. I'll reach out to you guys. Ignacio, thank you so much. Take care. So yeah, thanks guys. I'll see you in the next one. Enjoy the weekend, and I'll see you after practice, after quali, and after the race. Cheers.